Hi, and welcome to this mini lecture number 2 on the process theories of motivation. Have you ever wondered why you work harder for some courses and not as hard for others? Well, the process theories of motivation may actually start to unpack this for you to answer this question. So process theories of motivation really add to our understanding of the individual differences that happen at work. What we tend to find in this particular block of theories is that the equity, expectancy, and goal setting theories actually give us some sort of insight into an individual preference for rewards, the available rewards, and the possible work outcomes. So what these theories have found is that the individual difference somehow lies in these 3 items. So let's unpack this a bit more. So equity theory. Equity theory is based on the logic of social comparisons. Now, we all know we're social creatures. We also know that we're really good at comparing ourselves to others. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, that remains to be seen, but we do compare ourselves to others all the time. At work, it is no different. We compare our salary, we compare our conditions, we compare everything about our job to the person that is seen as, in our eyes, our equal. Now, if this actually ends up in a perceived inequity, then I'm going to, in this case, if I'm comparing myself to someone else, and I believe that there's an inequity that exists, I'm going to be motivated to do something about it. Now, according to equity theory, motivation actually lies in this perceived inequity. So, for example, my options are I can change my work inputs by putting in less effort, because if they're getting paid for at a higher rate and I'm doing the same amount of work as them and it's not being recognised, then I'm going to put less effort into it. Makes sense. I can change the work, the rewards that I received by asking for better improvement, or better treatment. So in this case, what we're saying is I'm going to go to my manager and I'm going to go, hey, I've just noticed Sally over here is actually getting the same higher salary for the same job. I would like the same. We can also change the comparison points. So in order to reduce this perceived inequity and make myself feel better, what I can say is, well, actually, Sally over here has 1 year left, 1 year more experience than me, and she got here before me, so that makes sense. So instead, let me compare myself over here with someone else, and they might be at a lower level. So this gives us some sort of insight into who we are and what we're worth. And the last situation is we can leave the job. So if we feel that that perceived negative inequity is actually high enough and we're really upset about it, we will leave if we have the choice. So equity theory really looks at, let's compare where I'm at, my thingy over here, where I'm at, to where someone else is at. And if that's actually inequitable in any way, I'm going to do something about it. So I'm either going to change my work performance or ask for more money, or I'm going to leave or be quite negative at work, which is going to decrease my productivity. So that's equity theory. We move on now to expectancy theory. Now, expectancy theory was created by Vroom, and Vroom actually suggests that the motivation to work depends on the relationship between 3 factors, and all 3 factors are really important. So first, we have expectancy. So if I work hard and I expect to improve my desired level of task performance, then that is what my expectancy is. So by working hard, I'm going to master this task performance. Instrumentality is saying that if I have successful performance, then this is going to be followed by rewards, and balance is how important this reward is to me. And that's really important. So the value a person assigns to a possible reward or other work-related outcome is actually really important in this circumstance. So it's not just about how I perform. It's not just about what reward you give me, but it's also about how much I value that. So let's have a look at this theory a little bit more. So it says, Vroom said that motivation is equal to expectancy times it by instrumentality times it by balance. And that will give you the equation, mathematically speaking, at where motivation lies. So the idea is, not only do you need to address task performance, you also need to address the reward and making sure the reward is important to that person. And this is where individual differences come in. So in mini lecture 1, we talked about extrinsic and intrinsic rewards. Now, extrinsic rewards is that rewards that's assigned by others to us, and intrinsic is what's within us, such as self-attainment or self-desire, self-satisfaction, all that kind of jazz. So, as a manager, your job is to actually work out what makes people, what's important to people, what makes them tick. Because what's going to motivate me is not going to motivate the person next to me. And it's this combination of variables, according to the expectancy theory, that actually motivates people's behavior. And as a result, managers, you need to get into the head of all of your employees and respect all of your employees' individual differences. So this table actually starts to unpack what all this means. So for you, management implications for this is that you need to work with every individual person. Now, we know that some people are motivated more so for extrinsic motivation than others, but what you need to do is clearly link effort and performance. So if they're putting in the effort and they're getting the outcome, then you reward that behavior. So moving on to our last theory in this section, it's all about goal setting. Now, we've heard about goal setting, I'm sure, many times in the past, and in organisations it's no different than everywhere else. So goal setting theory suggests that task goals can be highly motivating if they're properly set out and they're well managed, because it gives direction. And direction is really important because people underestimate how much structure employees need. So when I talk about structure, I'm not talking about micromanagement. I'm not talking about you going into their job and knowing exactly what they're doing when they're doing. But what I'm talking about is this explicit task statement that says, this is what I expect of you, because it's not done regularly. If you look at our position descriptions around the world, every position description is written purposely vague because every job is different. You cannot have the same position description for every person, because what we end up doing is assigning tasks based on actual ability and capacity, and they're not the same thing. So goal setting theory starts talking about how do we, as people, identify goals, clarify these work expectations, and reward behaviour on goal accomplishment. And this is really important. You must always reward employees on their goal achievement or accomplishment. And that's where motivation lies, according to goal setting theory. So another lot of theories that come out of this group of theories, the process theories, is this idea of self-efficacy. So self-efficacy is this person's belief that he or she is capable of performing a task. It's basically saying that if I believe that I can do it, or if others believe that I can do it, mostly if I believe, because I've got to believe, then I will be able to do it. From a manager's perspective, the major insight that comes out of self-efficacy theory is that your job is to boost confidence. It's to empower. It's to engage people and say, actually, you know what, you can do it. I've given you this job because you have the ability to do it and the capacity to do it. And in giving that direction, you're more likely to get better performance. So how do we master or enhance self-efficacy? Not everyone has self-efficacy, and this is where it's really important to begin to identify where your individual employees lie on this spectrum. So self-efficacy is this internal ability and internal confidence. And we all know that people waver in their confidence levels on all tasks. So one task isn't the same as another. But there are ways in which we as managers can actually develop this. So we can inactive mastery this. So I'm just going to read as it is. So inactive mastery is about how we gain confidence for an activity through positive experiences. So for example, if you have never submitted an assignment that's called an annotated bibliography before, or called a written report, or whatever it is that you've got coming up that you're not entirely sure how you can do, getting some feedback along the way will improve your self-efficacy. So the workshops, which are designed to give you feedback, will improve your self-efficacy, which will improve ultimately your result, because your internal confidence will give you more confidence in submitting a really good job. You can also enhance self-efficacy through vicarious modelling, and that's learning through observing others. So as a manager, we all hear that you need to You need to manage and you need to lead by example. And this is exactly where it comes from. When I was doing some research in change management and I was asking the managers how it is that they motivate their employees to change, their response was, well, I learn their job first. Once I learn their job, they know that I can do it. They know that I don't deprioritize their job in any way, shape or form. I know how to do it. So if they have any questions, they can ask me. So it's this vicarious modeling that actually enhances people's confidence at work. And that's very underestimated. The third way in which we can enhance self-efficacy is this thing called verbal persuasion. As managers, we have this ability to rely on our power of expertise. And our power of expertise means that people look up to what we do. And this means that when someone like us tells someone else that they're doing something really well and that they can perform the task, they tend to believe us. And in believing us, they use that in their self-efficacy. And our last way in which we can enhance self-efficacy is through emotional arousal. So when we're highly stimulated and energized to perform well in a situation, we're more likely to do so. So as managers, we need to encourage people to perform at their best always. So enhancing that environment in which we can do that is really important. So there's this thing called psychological capital, which everyone has. And it's this internal positive psychological state of development. So it's about, one, the high personal confidence and self-efficacy working on a task. So how well we believe we can do the task. Two, our optimism about our future and our present situation. And that's really important. Because just because I believe I can do something, if I'm not confident that it's going to end up anywhere, or I'm not optimistic about my future success of this, doesn't mean I'm going to do it. So the optimism that my present and future success is really important here. Hope and perseverance in pursuing goals and adjusting them as needed is also an internal characteristic that is related to self-efficacy and psych capital. And our resilience. Now, how do we respond to setbacks? We know that in organizations we're going to get rejected. We're going to end up in a situation where we have to redo something. It happens all the time, some for us daily, some for us weekly, some for us yearly, and some monthly. But it will happen, and that's really important. So actually developing our own internal psychological capital is absolutely critical in order to have self-efficacy. So, in brief, that was the mini lecture on process theories of motivation. And what these theories actually started to look at was how the individual differences are explained when it comes to allocating rewards. So we talked about equity theory. Equity theory was where we compare ourselves to others. Is what we get actually good? Expectancy theory starts looking at how do I, as a person, get that reward, perform the behavior, and is that reward actually important to me? So we're starting to look at that expectancy, instrumentality, and balance equation in expectancy theory. Goal setting is where we set a goal and we try to achieve it at all points. And self-efficacy is about our internal drive and our internal confidence to perform the goal. Now, without these, and even when we're looking at all the process theories in total, what we tend to find is that individual differences in motivation will lie somewhere in this. So that's the importance of process theories.